The topic for this debate is no media, no awareness. How important are media for the awareness of the issue of development amongst the European citizens first? So, on a degree from 0 to 10, when you have to assess how important are media for creating an awareness of the importance of development, what would you say? On which level do you rate the importance of media on a scale from 0 to 10 for your work?
Should be 9.
Should be 9. From a political perspective, to spread the political aspects of development and the visibility of the work that the European Parliament, the committee is doing, what would you rate?
No, of course, I think it should be a 10, but I mean, it's working both ways. So if politicians are clever enough to actually put the spotlight on development issues, then media will follow. But also, if media is taking the initiative, then politicians will follow. So it works both ways.
When are media taking the initiative to look at development issues?
Well, I think today we're living in a world where the media is speaking with like millions of voices, and people are more and more segmented in the way of consuming media. So we're actually running the risk that only those that are already interested in these issues will follow. So I think it's very, very important for journalists to take an active role themselves and try to convince their editors and you know, the owners of the publishing companies that it's actually interesting for them to do these stories, because it costs money to do real good research and to travel and etc. And I think we're running the risk of only having the reports of journalists kind of reporting the same stories that are coming from the big news agencies from developing countries, and that is very, very limiting and dangerous.
Do you agree that you need journalists as a kind of ambassadors to spread the word of the development issue?
I think it's not your role to be an ambassador of development cooperation. Unfortunately, today media are covering mainly a kind of humanitarian emergency situation and the charity celebrity business. I think this is not reflecting the diversity of the sector and the complexity. So my point would be perhaps to call on media to better communicate on the state of the world, because we cannot understand the framework within which development cooperation is working if we don't start by the big picture. What are the main challenges globally the world is facing? And I think this is not yet enough covered by media. The second aspect is the global citizenship. I think citizenship is present across all media, streamlined, but very the old-fashioned local citizenship, people active, but rooted in their local environment. But today we need citizens that are able to be active at local level, but understanding the global challenges as well, and situations and actors and how to influence those actors.
Is your feeling that journalists, maybe apart from some of the very big leading intellectual media like New York Times, Zürcher Allgemeine or whatever, but in general, the journalists you are in touch with, do they understand the scope, the global scope of development, the links between our world and the other world? Is there an understanding, a deeper understanding of the issue, or is this exactly what it's lacking?
I mean, I very much agree with what Olivier said here now. I mean, it's not a matter of reporting on development cooperation, but it's rather a matter of reporting of the global picture on life in all these countries. And that is actually what is lacking very much. I mean, I've been traveling in West Africa, I've been to Guinea-Bissau and Guinea, all these countries. I mean, there's huge problems of poverty, insecurity, food insecurity, lack of democracy, everything. And these parts of the world are completely uncovered in the big news media, which, exactly as Olivier said, very much is focusing on catastrophes, things that are happening, very urgent matters. But there's a huge area of the world that is actually not being reported to Western media at all.
Has your view on media and their performance regarding the issue been changing while you have switched from being the journalist to being a politician?
Not so much, actually.
Okay.
As I said in the beginning, I think the responsibility lies from both the policymakers and the politicians and the mediums. I mean, it's kind of a symbiosis where you can actually create awareness from the political side if you're good at communicating with journalists and with the audience. You can actually create some interest in some very odd issues like fisheries agreements or something like that, and there is a great interest in that. But on the other hand, if you have a very good reporter going out doing something, I saw this documentary, Canning Paradise, about what's happening in Papua New Guinea right now, done by a very good journalist from Australia, that can also create political pressure so that we do something about these problems.
What are you doing, your organization and the network you are chairing? It's a very big network with members in 20 or 27 countries, all dealing with that visibility issues. Are media receptive for the interest that your organizations have to share and for the true stories in these countries?
Not easy. Not easy to mobilize media on those specific issues linked to southern countries, developing world, broadly speaking. But I think we could do better ourselves also, perhaps to bring more attractive story for you. And some of our organizations within CONCORD are very good and known for their talent to bring stories that you like. But I think we shouldn't lose also the perspective that part of your role, media, is also to watchdog what the actors of the development cooperation, including NGOs, but starting perhaps with institutions and national government, bilateral aid agencies are doing on the field. It's your role to have an opinion, a critical view on what we do, and that might help us to deliver better our common mandate, which is fighting poverty, or supporting actors that fight poverty. Mainly.
What is the importance of what you can call social media for your work? Is that something that is simply reflecting the same limited interest but in another channel? Or is this something that is really growing more interest and more voices in that issue?
It's supposed to be the main channel to outreach to young public and young people. And I think this is a permanent challenge for most of our community-based organizations, which is to mobilize new support from the young generation. And certainly social media help us, or should help us to outreach.
Well, I think, the social media is obviously improving a lot the information that is coming out to the rest of the world and what's happening in North Africa, for instance. But also at the same time, I would like to advocate also that we need good quality journalism, because we cannot rely on the sources. If we just see these YouTube clips and read who's the sender? So I think it's a danger. We have to be very aware that the economical situation for the big media houses is actually making them cut down on journalism, and it can't be substituted by, let's say, the internet and all that information that is floating around. So I'm very much an advocate of kind of, we have to know that we also protect our journalists so they can do their job as watchdogs and all these things. And I appreciate you said that. NGOs very often, produce a report, give to the journalists, and then they make a story. But the journalists have to also actually examine what the NGOs are doing as they're examining the politicians.
Okay. Thank you very much, Isabella Lövin, coming from Sweden, member of the European Parliament, former journalist. Thank you very much, Olivier Consolo, President of CONCORD, the European Confederation of the Non-Governmental Organizations. We talked about no media, no awareness. What is the role of media in awareness raising towards development issues? The frame was 7 minutes for debate, presented by Deutsche Welle Academy on that stage. Don't miss the next edition, 1:30 in the next break of the European Development Days. Then the topic is light at the end of the tunnel, the media situation in Zimbabwe, and I will talk to Aldo Della Riccia, the head of the EU delegation in Zimbabwe, the ambassador of the EU in Zimbabwe. Thank you very much for being with us.